Hey, what's up guys, welcome to my channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and let's reach 1000 subscribers so that I will post videos regularly. Also, use the super ninjutsu power to like this video. Finally, don't forget to write in the comments which anime you want me to cut and turn on the bleach bell to get notifications and be informed when a new video will be uploaded. Let's go! The anime begins with terrible news for all humans. The 7 million year history of mankind is about to end because every 1000 years, the gods gather at the Council of Valhalla to decide the fate of humanity. Next, we find out that Zeus is the leader of all the gods and he asks for their opinions on whether humans should live or be killed. Shiva, Aphrodite and others decide to kill all humans, citing their lack of aspiration for reform and their contribution to environmental destruction. Zeus is about to announce the death sentence for all people, but suddenly Brunhilde, the eldest of 13 Valkyries, intervenes to stop them. She offers to test people because killing them is too easy for the gods. Brunhilde suggests Ragnarok, a one-on-one battle between the gods and mankind. 13 gods versus 13 people, and the side that reaches 7 wins will be declared the winner. If the gods win, they will kill all humans, and if humans do, they will live for another 1000 years. Brunhilde provokes the gods to malice for not wanting to face humans directly, as if they are scared. Zeus and the other gods agree to fight humans, and he gives Brunhilde the power to choose 13 humans for the battles. At the Valhalla arena, Ragnarok begins, and Norse god, so-called Watchman of the Apocalypse, Heimdall, announces the rules and the fighters. The first representative of the gods is Thor, the strongest Norse god and god of thunder. His rival will be the most powerful of all Chinese heroes, Liu Bu. Liu Bu's army, along with Chen Gong, supports him, and two generals, Zhang Fei and Guan Yu, with their warlord Liu Bei, came to see his battle. On the other hand, the Norse god of justice and reconciliation Forseti supports Thor. Next, Heimdall blows his Gjallarhorn and the battle between Thor and Liu Bu begins. They both walk calmly towards each other and suddenly Liu Bu attacks first with his halberd, but Thor blocks his attack. Then Thor attacks Liu Bu, but he also defends himself well, and Zeus remarks on Thor's great power. Thor uses electricity and grabs his hammer with both hands, preparing to attack. Odin's ravens Hugin and Munin mention Thor's respect toward Liu Bu. In ancient times, an army of 66 frost giants came from Jotunheimr and stormed Asgard. The biggest giant destroyed the walls and gates of the city, and they started to kill all people along with guardian angels. The Norse god of war Tyr didn't know what to do because the giants had reached the castle gates. Unexpectedly, Thor opened the gates and personally killed all 66 giants, but he was very bored. Currently, Thor strikes with his hammer and all the gods with humans can feel its power. The youngest of 13 Valkyries falls to her knees, unable to continue watching how gods kill humans. Suddenly, Liu Bu survives and damages Thor. The gods cannot believe how he has survived, and then they become thrilled to fight against each other. When Liu Bu was young, he searched for a worthy opponent. All Chinese warriors knew about the greatest Liu Bu, and in 30 years he realized that there is no one in the world who can fight him. The warlord Cao Cao wanted to execute him, and Liu Bu started to cry and beg for his life, as legend tells. However, in truth, Liu Bu was bored because he knew he is the strongest and he no longer found life worth living, so he allowed them to kill him. Returning to the present, Zeus realizes that Brunhilde gathered all her sisters and asked them to help humans defeat the gods. At that time, Ragnarok appeared and mentioned Thor's weapons. The first one is the Iron Gloves Yarn Graper, which can fend off any attack, and the second one is his hammer Mjolnir. Brunhilde asked her to transform into the weapon. At present, Liu Bu's halberd starts to glow because Ragnarok gave her body to help him and become his weapon whirlander against Thor. Then Liu Bu disarms Thor and strikes with his halberd. Thor immediately blocks using his iron gloves. Next, we find out that Thor needs iron gloves to control the immense power of Mjolnir, otherwise the lava-like heat will kill him. Unexpectedly, Lu Bu using his halberd destroys one of the two iron gloves. After that, humans start to praise Lu Bu. Hermes explains that Valkyries guide the souls of warriors to heaven and people become God's warriors to protect the heavens. He also adds that they can transform into weapons against the gods. Suddenly, Zeus goes mad and is also happy about that. Next, Mjolnir starts to heat up and melt the ground. Suddenly, the hammer makes a heartbeat and then Mjolnir awakes. Zeus informs that gloves were needed to control Thor's great power. Unexpectedly, Thor then lifts Mjolnir and asks Lu Bu not to die. At this time, Brunhilde receives a message with all the names of 13 gods and 13 humans. She is too confident that humans will defeat the gods and everyone will call them 13 god slayers, or the Einherjar. Hermes also receives the same message and informs Zeus about it. In the battle, Thor throws his hammer at Lu Bu, but he easily dodges Mjolnir and then he runs at him and wants to attack. Suddenly, Mjolnir comes from behind and Lu Bu dodges again. Thor grabs his hammer back and then delivers the ultimate blow to Lu Bu. Everyone feels the power of that attack. Then we see how Lu Bu blocks Mighty Garrett, Thor's hammer technique, but his legs are shaking and then his right leg breaks, followed by his left one. Lu Bu falls to his knees and Zeus mentions that this fight will end soon. Thor prepares to attack him, but unexpectedly, Lu Bu's horse, Red Hair, appears and comes to his honor. Meanwhile, Gong inspires everyone to continue cheering for Lu Bu. Next, he stands up and gets on the Red Hair's back. Then he tells a moment of his life when a bolt of lightning burst an enormous stream to flames, but he was not afraid of it. At present, Hermes mentions that Red Hair is redundant in this fight, but Zeus doesn't mind the horse help. Lu Bu starts to run in circles around Thor and then prepares to attack. When Lu Bu was alone among huge rocks, he kept swinging and practicing his weapon techniques using numerous halberds. He practiced a lot and one day he split the sky and developed a new technique named Sky Eater. At present, Lu Bu is going to perform his Sky Eater technique again, whereas Thor throws and grabs Mjolnir one more time. Thor is going to use Garrett Thor's hammer technique again and then they both attack each other, causing a burst of lightning and shockwave. Suddenly his halberd breaks and Grease dies. Lu Bu loses both arms, but he doesn't give up and rides at Thor feeling joyful. Thor immediately beheads Lu Bu with Mjolnir. Next, Heimdall announces Thor as the winner of the first battle in Ragnarok, and the gods start to celebrate his victory. Lu Bu died with a smile on his face, and Liu Bei, Guang Yu and Zhang Fei drink a toast to the greatest one. Thor goes back, but suddenly Lu Bu's army along with Gong and Red Hair are going to die because they cannot continue to live without their leader. That's why they attack Thor and he immediately kills them all and their souls crumble. Next, Brunhilde explains to Girl that everyone who lost will cease to exist and become dust. Girl gets upset because Brunhilde doesn't show any feelings toward their sister and Grease. They come to Brunhilde's room and she selects the next person for the second round. The Valhalla arena is ready for the second fight and Heimdall introduces the second human fighter. He then explains that he is a man who was born of God but rebelled against him. He is the first human in the world who hates the gods more than any human and the father of all the mankind, Adam. In addition, the gods think that he is weaker than Lu Bu, whereas Heimdall introduces the second god fighter, the strongest Indian god, but he doesn't appear. By the way, there are Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Johann Sebastian Bach and Michelangelo among humans. And then we see how Hermes plays Bach's music. Unexpectedly, Zeus comes to the arena to face Adam. All present cannot believe it, and then the god starts to cheering Zeus JFOC, which means the godfather of the cosmos. He then starts to transform from a skinny old man into Giga Chad, and then Brunhilde cannot imagine Zeus as the second participant. Before Zeus' appearance, the Indian god Shiva prepares to fight, but Zeus comes and states that it's now his turn to fight. Suddenly, Shiva gets angry, but Zeus keeps repeating that he will fight now and pushes him to his knees. Angry Shiva challenges Zeus, but then he calms down and lets him go and fight. Hermes comes back to his box and Ares takes his seat next to him. Zeus mentions that Adam doesn't have a Valender, and then Regan Leaf appears on the Pegasus. Next, she reaches Adam and touches his finger to become his weapon. She transforms into a knuckle duster on the right arm of Adam. The second fight between gods and humans begins. Adam's sons, Cain and Abel, come to support their father. Zeus announces that he will fight bare knuckle and immediately attacks him, but Adam easily dodges his 0.01 second attack. At that moment, Zeus increases his attack speed but still cannot touch Adam. He gets angry and uses his meteor jab technique. Adam's eyes are glowing red and he keeps dodging Zeus' attacks even though his attack speed has reached 0.701 seconds. Zeus uses the Divine Axe technique, but Adam jumps over the attack. Now Adam attacks him with the same speed and suddenly uses the same techniques such as Meteor Jab and Divine Axe. All of Adam's attacks reach Zeus, and then Brunhilde explains that Adam was created in God's image, therefore he can copy any of God's techniques because of his eyes and this ability named Divine Reflection. Next, Zeus starts to move around Adam at high speed and then he's going to kick him, but Adam dodges again. Using the same ability, Adam kicks Zeus. Unexpectedly, Zeus transforms into a big Giga Chad and prepares to use one of his strongest attacks. Once upon a time in the universe, Zeus killed his father Cronus and became the most powerful god. But the last hit of Cronus was very dangerous. Zeus had learned his father's last attack and named it the Feast that surpasses time. At present, he uses this technique and moves to hit Adam, but Adam dodges and immediately counterattacks, causing Zeus to fall down and leaving everyone shocked. Well, the god of war Ares states that Adam broke Zeus' neck when he counterattacked Zeus' technique. Next, we see Zeus lying on the ground unconscious. Nobody saw how Adam punched Zeus because the speed was unreal. Heimdall announces that Zeus is down, whereas Brunhilde explains to girl that Adam's strength comes from his malice and his hatred for the gods. In the past, Adam lived in the Garden of Eden, but one day he was on a trial for eating a forbidden fruit. Actually, the serpent tried to harass her near the apple tree, but she escaped and then he bit the forbidden fruit and blamed Eve in court. In addition, there were only gods in the court and they sentenced Eve to banishment from paradise, although she was innocent. Unexpectedly, Adam entered the court with 2 baskets of forbidden fruits and then he started to bite each apple in front of the gods. Next, he came to Eve and offered to leave paradise together. Suddenly, the serpent became angry and immediately attacked them, but Adam copied his clothes and sliced the serpent into pieces. Finally, Adam took Eve away. At present, Eve also came to support her husband. Brunhilde and others celebrate his victory, but then Zeus gets up and stops Heimdall's verdict. Zeus mentions that Adam doesn't hate gods, but he came to fight them anyway. Adam replies that there is only one reason, and that reason is to protect his family. After his words, all humans gather and pray for Adam. At that moment, Zeus starts shaking, but suddenly he transforms into his maximum form, named Super Mega Giga Chad. Odin's box, Thor arrives and grabs his ravens, but in an instant, Odin orders the god of mischief Loki never to transform into Thor. Loki then transforms into his real form and says that he saw his final form hundreds of million years ago, and it's very rare to see this form right here and right now. Zeus reaches his final transformation and reveals his Adamas form to everyone. In Adamas form, Zeus can stay for about 12 to 13 minutes, but because of the damage he received from Adam, Hermes thinks that there are only about 5 minutes left. In this form, Zeus can collect energy by compressing his muscles and release it during attacks. Then Zeus uses God's True Right technique and is going to attack Adam, but Adam copies, dodges and immediately counterattacks. The same thing happens with the left hand, and this continues to occur many times with only Zeus receiving damage. Unexpectedly, Adam's eyes start to bleed and Brunhilde knows that he is overheating from copying Zeus' punches. Loki notes the same thing and adds that Zeus' body is reaching its limit as well as Adam's. Nobody gives up in this battle. Suddenly, Zeus' blood falls on his right eye, breaking his vision, and Adam starts to bleed. Then Zeus' attack reaches Adam, after which he starts to beat him up, whereas Adam becomes blind. At that moment, his family and all of mankind ask him to surrender, but Zeus instantly delivers another serious punch and suddenly Adam grabs him by the head. They both release infinite blows on each other, but Zeus falls down. Zeus states that it's over and all humans start to celebrate. Unexpectedly, they realize that Adam has died standing on his feet. Adam died smiling, but he kept throwing punches. Next, Adam and Ragnarok's souls shatter and Zeus wins this duel. Gerd rushes to Brunhilde's room, but the second of the 13 Valkyrie sisters, Rhys, also arrives and explains that the Valkyrie becomes one with the fighter. They fight and die together. Suddenly, Rhys' second personality appears and promises to kill all the gods, whereas Brunhilde commands that they cannot lose the next fight. She receives a message with the name of the third god fighter. This fighter will be Zeus' elder brother, god of the seas, Poseidon. Then she thinks about who would go against him, and suddenly Kojiro Sasaki appears from behind and offers to choose him for the third round. Brunhilde didn't expect to see an old warrior, but Kojiro explains that he never stopped honing his skills since he died 400 years ago. Now he's ready to fight because this is his golden age. Next, Rhys agrees to help Kojiro in the battle with Poseidon. At this time the arena changed and was surrounded by water. Then Heimdall announces the beginning of the third round and introduces Poseidon, who splits the water and creates a path to the arena. He comes to the center and the gods remain silent, as well as all humans, because they are scared of his race. Later, Heimdall introduces the third human fighter, Kojiro Sasaki, calling him the greatest loser in the history. Suddenly, nobody believes that he would win, and Yori Miyamoto adds that his father was the greatest swordman, not Kojiro. Then swordman Seijuro Yoshioka and Shun Hozoin agree that Musashi Miyamoto is stronger than Kojiro. Kojiro draws his sword and calms the waves. Unexpectedly, Musashi starts to cry and calls him the greatest. The third round begins and Kojiro attacks first, but Poseidon immediately kills him. Then we find out that it was all Kojiro's mental image. In his mind, Kojiro had already died 18 times. Brunhilde tells Gerd that there were 13 gods in Olympus, and then Poseidon killed one of them. He killed the Greek god of conquest, Adamas. A long time ago, Adamas couldn't accept that Zeus became the greatest god, so he freed the titans and giants from Tartarus, and also took control of the beast Typhon. He met with Poseidon to ask him to join his army and conquer Zeus. Poseidon made Adamas angry because he told him that there are gods and they are perfect, but Adamas humiliated the gods with his actions. Suddenly, Adamas jumped to attack him, however, Poseidon instantly killed him and all this was watched by Hermes. At present, Kojiro sits down and just waits. In the past, young Kojiro was one of the students at the Toda Dojo during the Sengoku period. He arrived late and Kagekatsu was very angry with him, so he attacked Kojiro and immediately disarmed him. The young boy surrendered and told Seigen Toda, the master of the Kodachi, that he could get injured and the damage received by Kagekatsu would affect his future chances. In the forest, Kojiro started learning the secrets of battle from animals. After 6 months, he returned to the Toda Dojo to fight Seigen and Kagekatsu immediately attacked him. But suddenly he saw his death from Kojiro and then admitted his defeat. Next, Seigen came and agreed to fight him. 7 years later, old and blind Seigen visited Kojiro and felt that all the time he was training hard. Kojiro informed Seigen that he would no longer stay here because there is nothing left that interests him. Kojiro went traveling, losing fight after fights, and then he learned the Tsubame Gaeshi technique. In the present, he doesn't surrender for the first time and asks Poseidon to fight him. Kojiro decides to make the first move. He jumps and attacks him, but Poseidon easily dodges and is going to counterattack. But Kojiro stops his own blade and raises it up using his techniques and cuts a small piece of Poseidon's hair. Back in the past, on April 13, 1612 at Fukushima, Kojiro damaged Musashi Miyamoto using Tsubame Gaeshi, also leaving a scar on his face. At this time, all the people in the arena start to support him, whereas Kojiro informs them that Rhys has transformed into his sword. Then Poseidon uses Amphitrite, a barrage of attacks, but Kojiro dodges all of those attacks. Suddenly, Brunhilde explains that Kojiro has learned all of Poseidon's attacks and movements because he had fought him over and over again in his head. Unexpectedly, Poseidon starts to whistle, then he attacks and damages Kojiro due to the high speed. Kojiro suffers a serious injury from Poseidon but manages to get up. He questions why Poseidon won't accept the cheers from his god friends, and Poseidon responds by calling himself perfect and stating that he doesn't need friends. Then Poseidon jumps and unleashes a storm of attacks, but Kojiro continues to predict his movements. Kojiro tries to attack him, but Poseidon waits and moves to his blind spot. Despite this, Kojiro doesn't give up and continues to dodge all of Poseidon's attacks. He eventually reaches him and uses Ganryu Hyo Tarakiri technique. However, Poseidon dodges and then unexpectedly breaks Kojiro's sword. In the past, Kojiro injured Musashi Miyamoto but was very tired. At that time, they decided to fight to the death, and within a few minutes, Musashi killed Kojiro. However, both were happy to fight each other. In the arena, Kojiro questions Poseidon if he knows anything about honor, dignity, and respect. He then picks up his broken blades and suddenly the blades start to shine. Rhys' two personalities split and revealing them into two swords. Later, Brunhilde comments that Rhys is the only Valkyrie with two powers and feels lucky that this happened. Kojiro and Poseidon continue to fight harder, with Kojiro blocking Poseidon's attacks. Kojiro then copies and demonstrates all his opponent's techniques and finally manages to inflict a small cut on Poseidon's face. Suddenly, Kojiro keeps inflicting cuts on Poseidon and then his body starts to bleed. Poseidon combs his hair with his blood and he immediately attacks and pierces Kojiro. He then uses straightforward attacks and shows his Medusa Lobdimeter technique. It's a tempest of attacks and fast movements that creates a visual dome around Kojiro, damaging him. Kojiro starts to think that he will lose. Suddenly, he sees and hears all his opponent's support towards him. He gets motivated and instantly blocks Poseidon's attack. Injured Kojiro becomes stronger and reads all his movements. He then reaches Poseidon, dodges his lightning-fast attacks, and suddenly cuts his right arm with the trident. Unexpectedly, Poseidon grabs the trident with his left hand and attempts to strike, but Kojiro also reads this movement and cuts his left arm. Finally, Poseidon goes mad and grabs his trident with his teeth. However, using Musashi's move, Kojiro cross-slices Poseidon into four. The god dies and humankind gets the first victory, and Poseidon's body crumbles to dust. Then humans start to praise Kojiro for his first victory ever. At that moment, Odin goes mad and suddenly Kojiro starts to fall down, but Rhys catches him and helps him to escape from the arena. Next, the gods gather in Zeus' room and Zeus personally mentions that mankind isn't that strong. Shiva is going to fight next, but Zeus wants the Greek gods to avenge mankind. Later, Heimdall announces the beginning of the fourth round and the arena is getting reworked and turned into 19th century London, because the human fighter requested it and the god fighter accepted. He introduces the next human fighter, the evilest of evil and mankind's most celebrated murderer, Jack the Ripper. Humanity cannot believe this and Heimdall announces the fourth god fighter, the valiant warrior who pummeled into submission the Nemean Lion and Cerberus, the Hound of Hell. When he completed the 12 labors, he became half god and half man. The greatest Heracles. Battle number 4 will be between Heracles and Jack the Ripper. good versus evil. Hey, thank you for watching this video, I really appreciate it. Also, check my other videos such as Jujutsu Kaisen Season 1 in 43 minutes and the greatest anime movie, Your Name in 17 minutes. Goodbye!